All right, welcome back to another episode of the Conquer Cast. I'm back with one of my favorite people, as I mentioned before on a previous podcast with Eric McCormack. Eric is here today. Last time we talked about his story, and man, that was a tearjerker to kind of hear your upbringing and the experience of being homeless and going through the struggles that you did and deaths in your family that were so close to home and so impactful. I'm sure a lot of people listen and could put themselves in your shoes or never have been close to those shoes, you know. But Eric lives a very inspirational life. We had a workout here this morning with him. Tomorrow at headquarters, he will run us through what we call Warrior Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we get together as a team. And when Eric McCormack's in town, it's a special workout. It's not only very, very difficult, but it's very thorough. And you usually have a prayer from Eric throughout. And I've never had somebody that could be like, not yelling in a bad way, but yelling at me in a motivational way to do something and feel so much love from that person at the same time to where you're like, yeah, I don't want to quit. I've got to push through this, you know? So anyways, enough of that intro. I'm just grateful to have you here, Eric.
I'm great to be here.
And Eric's part of our advisory board here at Mountain Ops as well. A member of that board that contributes. You'll start to see more content from him, articles, blog posts, Facebook and Instagram lives. And then right now today, we want to dive into some starting points to fitness. And then we're going to break down Eric's 5 components of fitness, because there will be some content coming out from us, some things that you guys can follow, learn from. And but I want to dive into it on this podcast so that Eric can kind of give us a glimpse into what we should be looking for and what we should be doing right now.
Yeah.
So let's start with the starting points, Eric, unless there's anything else you want to introduce before we get going.
No, so I mean, realistically, we're just trying to give you a template of something to maybe restart of how to monitor your health. Health is first, and then performance. So we're really trying to give you some markers of how do you really monitor what's going on in your body with your performance and with your overall health. And that's really what we want to do, is make you live a long, productive life for as long as possible. So these are sort of like some concepts I've came up with over being in the fitness industry for over 25 years, and really to give you these markers to know if you're making progress and to know where you're at. And most people, they just don't know where they're at and where to get started. So hopefully this information might give you some guidelines of where to go and what's your next steps.
Awesome. And who is this for? Because like last time, I think I interviewed you before your last bodybuilding competition.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so just a few weeks ago, after our previous conversation on this podcast, you went and competed.
Yes.
And you won.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible what you've done. Is this for Eric McCormack types that are winning bodybuilding competitions, or is this for the person that's trying to get off the couch for the first time, or who can benefit from this?
It's really every single person on this planet. I mean, that's where it's catered to, is we need to know. And that's where it's just bringing awareness of where are you at, where's the progress, and how can you monitor your life over longevity. And when you're 20, it's not the same as when you're 30, and when you're 40, when you're 50. And these markers will really indicate where you're at for your age and longevity.
Awesome.
So it's really designed for every single professional athletes to person just getting there. I mean, we need to all have tests and markers to monitor ourselves.
Yes.
So it's for everybody.
Okay, great. So let's dive in then.
So we really got to look at 3 different starting points. Where are we going to start? And the most important is your internal health. That is the most important. You might look physically healthy on the outside, but what's going on in the inside? So internal health is the most important. How we monitor that is I recommend finding a doctor, a great doctor that understands you personally. And we want to get blood work and a physical done every single year. And the reason that we do that is to monitor our hormones, our minerals, vitamins, and what's going on internally in our body. And those things change with age. So ideally, we want to know where we're at through our platforms of ages. So ideally, at the age of 35 is sort of when you hit muscle maturity. Okay. And after that, so ideally, you should be getting blood work at 30 years old, 31, 32, 33, and to know what your body's running at its most optimal level. What is your testosterone? What is your cortisol? What is your estrogen? What are your minerals and vitamins? And this is 2024. We can get a complete panel of everything in your body. And when you get these results, you really want to have a doctor go through these results with you and share with you what the results are. And you really can't just go off of general population you sort of have to be individualized for you. So you have to find a doctor that listens to you, to what your lifestyle is. Yeah. And that's why you really want to have this internal health monitored every single year. So if
there's a baseline that you can measure from, right?
Yes, you need to have a baseline.
Yeah.
So somebody, give you an example. So say a male that turns 30 years old has a testosterone level of 500. And then when he hits 35, it's dropped down to 300. And then 60 is dropped down to 100. So that's where going in and monitor your hormone. Where is your body typically at? And to monitor that through your longevity of life so you don't have these ups and downs of your roller coasters through your hormones and vitamins and minerals. So you just have a baseline to monitor that. So most important is your internal health. Yeah. What is going on inside your body?
And a doctor or somebody that can read those results with you that understands that stuff, right? Because sometimes I go to a medical doctor and they just want to give me, here's the basic overview, and they don't give me a lot of details. So, so there are other doctors that's important to them. Yeah. And you need to find the right medical professional that will understand those results, understand what's going on in your life, that maybe they can give some feedback on it as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything as a trainer or as a doctor, you want to find the one that is going to listen to you, is going to put his booklet down and really is saying, Trevor, what kind of lifestyle do you live? Where are you at? Let's talk about these results, because that's the most important. It's like somebody's going through your car diagnostic and really breaking it down for you.
Yeah, because I don't always want just a medication that fixes this. That's medication has its place. Surgery or operation has its place, but oftentimes, I've found doctors that are like, hey, that's the last option. Let's dive into lifestyle. Let's dive into your routine, your fitness, your nutrition. That's what's important for me to get that baseline understood and then to build upon.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it goes back to some of these components we'll talk about is like, who do you have in your team? Yeah. So realistically, you want to find a doctor that is healthy, that exercises, that's in the fitness and health industry. Yeah. I mean, that's just not sitting back and trying to push medication. Yeah. So you got to it's your work to find that doctor you can that you can have on your team.
So that's starting point number one.
Yes. Most important is internal health.
All right.
So then the second one is we'd probably go into body composition. Body composition is going to be how much muscle tissue and how much body fat you have. Those are important things because that all relates into health. And obesity is pretty apparent in everything: diabetes, heart disease, overweight. So realistically, we want to figure out what your body composition is and be able to make a healthy decision of where you should be at. Yeah. There's a few ways of getting a body composition. The best is the DEXA scan, which is an X-ray machine, and it's going to give you a very accurate reading for body fat, muscle tissue, visceral fat, which is around your organs, and also your bone density. Yeah. So body composition is very important. Considered obese is over 30% body fat. Yeah. And most people have no idea what their body composition is. Yeah. For men, I try to get my athletes or people down in the teens, 15 to 20. Women are a little higher, up in the 25s. So realistically, we want to reduce the visceral fat, which is around your organs, because that's restricting blood flow from your heart.
Yeah, that one's scary for me because we've done the DEXA scan with you helping the team. We've had them come up here with the van. They, we sign up for our slots, and I'm a fairly healthy person, but my visceral fat was not great. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't where I want it to be. And just knowing that that's working against my organs and my internal health that way. And a lot of times, I came out from both of my checkups with them, and I had improved over time. I'm really interested now to see it, having been, on a gluten-free diet over the last 6 weeks, to see where I'm at, because I've lost quite a bit of weight. I'm hoping there's some visceral fat weight. I'm sure there is that's gone away. But that kind of puts you in check as well. Like you've got to have those organs working at full steam. And if there's fat prohibiting that, and sometimes that's due to stress, sometimes it's eating. I think for me, it was a combination of both my nutrition and my stress levels. They said that a lot of times they'll go into organizations and with CEOs that are very stressed in life, they usually have high visceral fat. So working on it.
Yeah, and that's really where also goes back to your nutrition and exercise.
Yep.
If your goal is to lose weight, we want to use these body compositions during this process to see if your nutrition is actually working. And that's where the guessing game is out of the equation. We have the technology. So I would recommend, if you're starting a fitness regimen or just knowing where you're at, get a body composition. DEXA scan is the best. Hydrostatic is the second, but that's sort of a hard one because it's you have to be submerged in water. You have to have a professional do that.
Yeah.
The in-body is another good one. It's done through an electric current, but it can be off by quite a bit because it's done through an electric current. If you have inflammation or dehydrated, it can be off by 6%.
Oh, wow.
So it can be a pretty big difference. And that's why if you're going to be doing this process, spending money on supplements, nutrition, blood, sweat through your exercise, wouldn't you want to have the most accurate test?
Yep, for sure.
So body composition is the second starting point.
Okay.
And then the last is performance. I always believe in some kind of test to monitor your performance. It just depends on what your goals are. Typically, the tests that I like to run are body compositions or body calisthenic test over time.
Okay.
So it's a really good test because it's just like, how many push-ups can you do in 2 minutes? How many body pulls can you do in 2 minutes? How far can you move in a half hour? How long can you hold a plank? Those are just basic tests. Like there's a Murph. There's a lot of different tests you can do out there to monitor your fitness. But if you have a goal to improve your strength, you got to have some test every 30 days to see if your performance is improving.
Yeah.
So we have internal health, body composition, and physical fitness test.
The test is every 30 days. Just to watch the progress.
Yeah. I mean, I like to not go too far because I like to keep it driving. So if you have a test coming up, you're going to be preparing for that test. And the more often you have that test, it's going to keep you sharp. And ideally, I like to have those focusing. So for me personally, I do blocks throughout the year, so I don't plateau.
Yeah.
The first 3 months of the year, I work on conditioning. So January, February, March, I'm working on conditioning. Then I'll go into strength training for the next 3 months. Then I go back to conditioning with conditioning 2, which will lead me right into September, hunting season. So you're in phenomenal conditioning. And then I go back to 3 months of strength training. So I sort of break it up. So I never plateau. I'm always having different goals I'm sort of working toward. So I'm not running the whole year for the same program.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
Just something to throw out there. So those are the 3 starting points to hopefully help you monitor your health.
Perfect. No, that's awesome. Appreciate that, Eric. And then once you've got that down, are you kind of working on that first, and then you're going into the 5 phases or 5 components of fitness, or is it all kind of
It's all intertwined?
Okay.
So the tests are for you.
Yeah.
Those are see if your progress is happening. The 5 components are sort of like what you base your day after. How do you base your week? How do you base your training? So these 5 components I've sort of came up with to give you a foundation to be balanced. We want to be the balanced athlete. the hybrid, which has strength, endurance, overall. So these components I've sort of came up with to give you some structuring.
That's awesome. Let's dive into the components then.
Okay. So the first component is the most important component, and that is team. Who do you have on your team? And growing up through life, how many teachers, how many professors, how many people do you have in your corner educating you, pushing you on the way? Once we get done with high school or college, we sort of maybe don't look for teammates. So team is number one.
Awesome.
We just talked about doctor.
Yeah.
That's somebody you should have on your team. There's a lot of team members you can have on your team, and you should always try to find additional team members, especially when you get older. So doctor is number one. Other teammates could be training partners, family members, Facebook groups, acupuncturists, nutritionists, training coaches. I mean, anybody that you can add into your team, therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, it really comes to where are you at in your life right now that you could bring somebody that has a gift that can educate you, teach you in their gift. My gift is I'm able to get people to work outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's my gift.
Yep.
So if somebody really needs that monitoring, that push, I am your guy. I will get into your headspace and allow you to drive that car a little farther than you thought.
Yeah.
So that's where, who do you have on your team? I work with Brandon Jones. He's a NASCAR driver. Do you know they have 14 people that work on that car?
Didn't know that.
So I like to give myself the analogy as my car, my vessel that God gave me. That's my machine.
Yeah.
So when's the last time you had a tune-up on that car? That's that internal health. When's the last time you looked at the motor? When's the last time you really took care of those tires? So you want to add to your team of how can you make that vessel, how can you make that car run more efficient? And you don't know it all, so why wouldn't you want to find somebody that has a special skill that can streamline the process and allow you to be more efficient?
That's amazing. So somebody listening right now, they might be thinking, do I have to go and hire all these coaches and these team members, or is this just finding the right people that are going down the same path as them and they can join together, they can hold each other accountable, or is it some of it they're going to have to hire, or what's your experience been that way?
Well, I look at it as an investment into you. People are always trying to put money in other things and situations. When's the last time you spent $1,000 on your health? You spend $1,000 a month on your car.
Yeah.
When's the last time you really took an investment into you?
To keep that car running, right?
Yes.
So what about keeping us running?
Yes. And that's where it's just like, if you are struggling through life, make that investment financially. If you don't have the finances, ask.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Somebody will help you. But it's like you really have to be open to if you need help in a certain area. So if you don't know how to exercise, it's a good investment of hiring a coach to give you that structuring. If you have problems with nutrition, you're a perfect example of some of these nutrition things. You're going to a specialist. How can I reduce some information from my body? So making the investment into you, sometimes it costs money.
Yeah.
And it's worth the investment to improve in yourself.
Love it. And I think of Mountain Ops as anyone listening, obviously we want to be part of your team, right? We want to be one of those sources, resources, and obviously there's opportunity to buy product from us, but there's coaches here. And one of the things I love most about Mountain Ops is our Conquer More Facebook group. There's thousands of people in there. A lot of them are very active, supporting each other along the way. There are some individuals that are certified physical trainers in there that are giving feedback from our team, and others that have just joined the group. And so it's one area where you can, if you need a team, if you need to feel connected, like join that group, and there will be a lot of resources there offered. One of our core values at Mountain Ops is interdependence. We can do so much more collectively than we could do independently. So it's all about team.
Yes.
It's all about connecting and conquering. And so I love that that's the first component, because it's through connection that we are able to conquer in life. So I love it. What's the next phase? What's the next component?
So we have team, which is number one. The second component is your fuel. Where does your fuel come from? And
this is all just a NASCAR analogy now.
Yes,
You've got this car and
and that's where it really makes sense, because that vessel is going to be your transportation through life.
Yeah.
And do you want to be running on those tires, or do you want to be in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And this is what we're really trying to preach. I want you to be able to do anything in life at any moment to enjoy life. That's my mission, is to make you fit, healthy, so you can do anything in life that you want to do. You don't have limitations. So your fuel, and that's where we come back to nutrition. Your body is a machine. It is burning calories 24/7. Every single heartbeat is burning energy. Would you agree?
100%.
So your body's constantly burning.
Yeah.
And with your fuel, most people have no idea of how many calories their body's burning a day. And you really have to know.
Yeah.
You really need to know how much energy is your body putting out. And the technology is available to give us not an exact number,
right,
but we need to have a ballpark figure. So with the Garmin, Fitbit, Whoop, they all sort of are basing off the same technology. They're going to vary a little bit, but it's going to give you a number. And that number is going to be somewhat of how you monitor your life. Right now, most people are driving their car without having a fuel gauge.
Yeah.
And we want to give you actual gauge. And with the great thing with the body composition test that we talked about, if you go in and do a DEXA scan, it's going to give you a very accurate reading, because muscle tissue is living tissue. Muscle tissue burns calories doing nothing. Body fat does not burn calories. So the more muscle tissue you have, the more energy your body has to put out to keep the living tissue alive. So the DEXA scan is going to give you a very good, accurate reading. So for me, I'm 190 pounds. I have about 160, 170 pounds of muscle. I burn about 1,800 calories a day just doing nothing. If I just sat on the couch, I would generate that energy. So the doctors have came up with a formula, basic metabolic rate, of how much energy that your body puts out. So if you're in a coma, they know how much energy, how much fuel to put into your body to keep you alive. That's where all these trackers are sort of using this basic formula. It's not exact, but it's going to give you a ballpark. So your fuel, you need to know your output and you need to know your input to really monitor your performance, whatever your goals are. If you're trying to monitor your weight loss, do you want to just lose weight, or do you want to lose body fat?
Yeah.
And that's what it sort of comes down to. If I want to lose weight, I could just sacrifice and just cut out carbohydrates and then just lose water weight.
Right.
But that's not body fat. So that's where we got to know of how much your body's putting out to how much your body's putting in. And there's trackers out there that will give you a ballpark figure. Not exact, because these food labels can be off by 20%. So there's some variability in there. But ideally, when we're talking about fuel, we got to find the right foods that work best for your digestive system. We all have a unique digestive system.
Yeah.
So looking at your system, what foods react best for your body? You're still trying to figure it out, right?
Through that process right now. Yep.
So there's some guidelines you're looking at is when you get older, the fuel, where does that fuel come from? If you went to a general nutritionist, they're going to say 50% of your calories should be carbohydrates, 20% protein, 30% fats. That's just general population for overall health. Lots of people are scared of carbohydrates. They're like, I don't want to eat carbs because they make me put on weight. Well, you're neglecting fuel for your heart, your muscle, your organs from restricting energy. So what carbohydrates react best for your body to perform? So ideally, we want to trickle in energy during the day when you're active, and then phase those out before the sleeping process. And you got to have the right fuel and the building blocks. So you need to eat proteins and carbs with every meal because they work together. You can't eat one without the other. So that's where the fuel comes in. What are you doing? What is the purpose of your nutrition? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to build muscle? Are you trying to run a marathon? Are you trying to do powerlifting? Those change up your fuel for those particular purposes. But we're just talking general health right now.
Right.
So there's actually 4 different things that you need to have for your fuel.
Okay.
You have your carbohydrates, which are fuel. You have your fats, which are good for organ, brain function, body function. You have protein, which protects muscle tissue, that builds muscle tissue. And then we have water. Those are the 4 macronutrients that you need to have. Water is the most important nutrient for your body. That is the transporter. So if anything else, we got to consume the water.
See, I always hear people talk about those completely separately. People say you got to stay hydrated, and then they talk about macros.
Oh, no. It's all blended in together.
Yeah, love it.
So that's where hydration is number 1. Fuel is number 2. Then we come into the fats, and the proteins are number 3 and 4.
Yeah.
It just depends. And it's where the structuring really comes in. If you're doing more endurance training, you have to have more carbohydrates. If you're doing more resistance training, you have to have more protein. It sort of depends on what your exercise regimen is, but if you're just looking at overall health, that's where the 50, 30, 20 come in.
Yeah.
Just finding that structure. And that's where like MyFitnessPal, it's a free app. And it will tell you right when you download the app, it's going to break it down 50% carb, 20% protein, 30% fats. And that's for general nutrition.
Yeah.
But when you start exercising, those numbers are going to change a little bit for what your goals are.
That's why it's so important to have the team to start with, because then you can have somebody to bounce this. Hey, I'm moving into this realm of life where I'm going to run a marathon. My coach or my team member can say, okay, here's how you're going to adjust. But it's powerful. And all of these seem to have this baseline of tracking and accountability.
Yes.
Like each of these components, right?
Yes, you got to monitor. You got to know.
And that takes some discipline, I think. I think that might be one of the most difficult things for people is like, hey, I'm going to do these things. And then they start trying to track, or they start trying to write it down, or hold themselves accountable. We're so easy or so quick to let ourselves off the hook for certain things. I didn't do it today, I'll try to do it tomorrow. Well, does that come by way of the team being the number one component, somebody to hold you accountable, or how have you found that best?
Well, we need to really build some structure. So hopefully this might help some people right here. So we work with a supplement company. So Mountain Ops, they make sports supplements. They're designed to make life a little simpler.
Yeah.
That's where it is. And it's exactly what it is, supplementation to their base nutrition.
Right.
So ideally, this is how I run my life. So I try to consume some kind of calories every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. Right when I wake up, my blood sugar level's low. I'm in starvation mode. I want to get the nutrients into my body as fast as possible so I can get my metabolism, my blood sugar level back up to normal so I can start performing right when I wake up in the day. So if we can get back to breakfast, lunch, and dinner as our base meals, that's where the structure comes in. The breakfast and lunch, we really focus on energy because you have to perform, you have to interact, you have to be engaged, and that comes back for energy. The dinner time is when you're getting ready for that sleep process. And that's where you can load up more on protein, because the only time your body repairs is during that sleep process.
Okay.
You still need carbohydrates, but you don't need the rocket fuel. You need a little bit, and that's where I transition more vegetables and greens. At the nighttime, there's not much power or much calories.
Yep.
But that's where sports supplements, they come in, they fill in the gaps. So if I have breakfast and then I have a protein shake with a piece of fruit 3 hours later, then I have my lunch, which is energy. 3 hours later, I have another shake with a piece of fruit, another energy, then meat and my vegetables, a little more energy. And then right before I go to bed, I have another protein shake with my slumber, my glucosamine, whatever it is to help repair that body. So when I wake up, it's ready to go the next day.
Awesome.
So ideally, I'm trying to trickle in a little bit of fuel every 3 hours, not overload the system, just enough to get me to my next meal. And it really makes the car run more efficient. And that's where, with fasting and starvation for periods of time, I believe it has its place. If you have problems with eating, which we all have some I wouldn't say a disorder, but we have some relationship with food.
Yeah.
And if you overeat, that's where some of the fasting comes in, of actually building some control. But once you build that control, it's always better of trickling in.
It's a fuel.
Yes, other than loading the system in an 8-hour period.
Yeah.
And just trying to cram the calories in, because that's not good on your digestive system.
Yeah. No, I love it. It makes so much sense. And if nothing else, a baseline of breakfast, lunch, dinner with some protein in between, right? And then obviously we've got great proteins for you, but I mean, that's a starting point for people.
Yes.
It's awesome.
And just building some base template. And definitely I would recommend buying a fitness tracker.
What do you use?
I have the Garmin.
Okay.
It's a little more expensive. It has a lot of other technology in there. But you sort of have to learn how to use it. The simplest one is the Fitbit. Fitbit is the simplest one, and it's the least expensive.
And that's what I got when I first started tracking with you. And then my son Beckham was working with you for a little bit, and he would, we just went out and bought, I can't remember what those cost, but
$150.
And they track really well. So, and sometimes you don't know where your caloric burn is, or you don't know how you're sleeping and what's going on even in your sleep with that. And so it's nice to get that baseline so that you can monitor over time, even monitoring your sleep.
Yes.
Because that's, I mean, you talk about being ready and energized for the next day, it's getting enough sleep as well. Okay, so we've got
Team,
fuel.
So just one more thing with the fuel, it's finding the right foods for your age at this time in your life. Using those foods to build and propel your body through the day. It's going to change throughout life. So that's why we have to be on top of this to make sure that we're finding the right 20 or 30 foods that react well with your body. And this is where you got to have some leeway in there. The way I sort of preach to people is, during your work week, be disciplined. Monday through Friday, you have your routine and you follow it to the T. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, shakes, all the way through. Maybe the weekend, maybe have a little more freedom if you want. But if you do that, we are B pluses, the balanced person. And that's really what we're trying to preach is, how can you be a good, consistent person through the rest of your life? You can be an A. I've been A for a short period of time, but you're setting yourself up for failure. You can't be an A for the rest of your life. You have to have structure. We just had a birthday party here, and we're throwing out cookies and cake.
But guess who didn't eat them?
Me and you.
Yeah. That's a feat for me. I mean, most of the time I'd eat 2 of them.
But that's where some teammates come in.
Yeah.
And that's where your team has to be your household.
Yeah.
Your wife, your husband your children, why are you doing this? You're doing this to enrich your family's life. So realistically, you got to have the whole family on this program. Yes.
In fact, that's the most important right there.
Yes,
right?
that's your most important.
What else are we doing this for?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to lead by example. Your kids are going to follow. If they see us doing the work, they're going to follow in our footsteps. And that's a fit, healthy lifestyle for our children.
Yeah.
So I'm just calling to the parents. If you have children, let's step up to the plate and start making some of these changes. Start your starting points and start implementing these 5 components into your life.
It's awesome.
Team, fuel. Those are the 2 most important components to life. What do you put into the body? What do you put in the machine? And who is your team? The next 3 components can be juggled to each individual's what they need. The third component is your motor. We just talked about the tracker. What do you think is the most important feature of that tracker?
Heart rate.
Oh, yes.
Am I right?
Yes. That is the most important muscle, period.
Yeah.
That is what gives you life.
Yeah.
So the tracker is constantly monitoring your heart. And we want your heart to run long and efficient.
Yeah.
And you got to know where it's at. Let me just give you an example. An athlete has a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute. That's an athlete. That is 33 million beats in a year. That's a lot of beats.
Wow.
And that's an athlete. Just think if you're pushing 70, 75. And you have to remember that comes back to your nutrition. If we're giving your heart the right fuel and hydration, the heart is going to run more efficient.
Yeah.
And it also comes back to your body composition. The more fat you have around the heart, the harder that heart has to work. So we really wanted to monitor your motor. My goal is to make your heart run slower, more efficient, so you will live a longer, more productive life.
Awesome.
And so we have to monitor your motor. That's your heart.
Yep.
Buy a tracker. That is the most important thing. And that's where some of the problems with neglecting carbohydrates and starvation. When you watch your heart rate monitor, you'll see that your heart is elevated because it doesn't have the fuel to function correctly.
Yeah.
And that's where it's sort of having some problems. We want to give your heart, organs, muscles the proper fuel to run more efficient. So the motor is the most important muscle, and we have to monitor that.
Yeah. That's how this company was started, was to help the motor. It was right to the core, right to the heart. And these devices work because I've been in meetings where I was the keynote speaker, and I'll get up there ready to go, and my heart rate monitor will go off saying your heart rate is abnormally high. And so, it knows in those moments when maybe your heart rate's not where it typically is, and so it can monitor that. But no, this is, right to the core, right to the heart. Enduro was the product that was first formulated for my father's heart.
Yes.
And it wasn't pumping enough blood to the extremities. It wasn't functioning properly. So they put some stents in his heart, and then even then it needed a little bit more help outside of that. It needed some supplementation, and so the doctor had him on arginine tablets for a period of time, but he still was like always feeling his fingers and toes trying to get the circulation coming back into him, and it wasn't working. So I read a book called No More Heart Disease, the NO, the no standing for nitric oxide, which is what Enduro, Yeti, Ignite all produce through arginine and citrulline. And we put my dad on that. His cardiologist just told him, just keep taking whatever your son's giving you, because this is actually, you're seeing some results. He could start to feel his fingers and toes again. So I'm grateful that's a component of this, because we need to keep those hearts pumping. We need to protect them, that muscle that's so important for us. And so I love that it correlates to why this company even exists in the first place.
And the great thing is that if we're talking about exercise, which is a good thing to implement into your life, hopefully everybody out there will forming some form of exercise. Where are your target zones? And there's fat burning zone, there's cardiovascular zone, and there's peak zone. So it just depends on how hard your heart is working for what your goals are.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people are confused by, because people can go out and they can run and they can run and they can run, and they're like, I'm preparing for a marathon and I still kind of have this skinny fat on me and I'm not losing a lot of weight. They're in the wrong zone, right?
Yes.
I mean, maybe not in the wrong zone for preparing for the marathon, but if they're trying to lose weight at the same time, they can't have that heart rate way up.
No, and this is where you really have to take a step back and really look at what is the heart doing. The heart is surrounded by muscle tissue, right? Fat is on the outside of the body and it's around the organs also. But you have to think about it. When you're trying to melt the fat cells, it becomes like water-based, and then you use it through your breath. That's actually how you lose body fat, through your breath. So we think of it this way.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so you're sort of breaking it down. You're making the fat become pliable water, so you're using it. So ideally, when you're trying to lose the fat cells, we're just trying to heat that heart up just enough to start melting the out layer, to make it become water, to make it pliable. So that's why that's the first zone, is fat burning zone.
Yeah.
Once you break that, then you start going into cardiovascular zone, which you start using the energy from the muscles, propelling the body. And then everybody knows who that peak zone is, when it's your body's just ramped up and that you're just using everything to get through that.
Yeah.
So hopefully this might be the key to some people, is that if you're trying to lose body fat, you don't have to work so hard. You just have to spend time doing it. Consistency. So if you're a little overweight that you really want to lose that, we just need to be spending time in that fat burning zone, not overworking. And that's where we have that mindset, is like, I need to go harder.
Yeah.
I need to push harder. And if they're not out of breath, they're not sweating, they feel that they're not on the right track.
Yeah.
But if you have the coach on your wrist, this is part of my team. I mean, this is a tool, but it's a part of my team.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly checking in with that team. So as a bodybuilder, my goal is to protect muscle tissue and lose the body fat for one particular day. So to lose 1 pound of body fat, you have to burn 3,500 calories in that fat burning zone. So you sort of have to be monitoring yourself in that zone to make sure that it's running correctly. So it's all comes back to your heart for performance, for what your goals are, and that internal mechanism. And we have to monitor that.
That's powerful.
It is so overlooked. And it's sort of hard to see that some people that are discouraged, that just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
You just need to start moving your body. And if you're really overweight, you'll be amazed. Just walking will get you in that.
Yeah, I mean, even bodybuilders in the gym, I'll see them walking on the treadmills for a very long time, sometimes on an incline, and they've got their headphones on just like this. And I used to not know what they were doing. I thought they just like to live in the gym, but they're in that fat burning zone. They're burning off any excess fat that they have. And I can tell you, for me, the time when I lost the most weight, the quickest was out on an elk hunt, and I shot a bull, and we couldn't find it. And then I spent 2 weeks after that just hiking the hills. You know, I wasn't running hard. I wasn't in the gym lifting a ton of weights. I was walking these mountains and these hills at just sometimes a slow pace, sometimes a brisk pace. But I lost like 22 pounds, and I thought, man, if people would just get out and do something like this. The problem is a lot of people, they want to see the result right away. That one actually came pretty quick because I was very consistent, but consistency is difficult for people. And if you can get into a consistent rhythm and then add some intensity over time, man, I can only imagine what we could all be, you know, but you have to let time do the hard work. I was with Jim Shockey once, and we were interviewing him in his Hand of Man Museum, and he was talking about his physical fitness, and that was the saying that he told me was like, I just had to let time do the hard work. But you have to be disciplined in the consistency.
Yes. And think of it this way, is when you were just talking about the treadmill.
Yeah.
If you can use a little bit of an incline,
Yeah.
so it's engaging more of the muscles, more of the leg muscles.
Yep.
So your legs and quadriceps are the biggest muscle group of your body.
Yeah.
So if you can use your leg muscles, that's going to pump a lot of blood into your heart, and it's going to be a lot easier. So, and also it's going to save the motors out there.
That's why hiking the mountain, right, was very, very beneficial.
Slow, gradual,
Yeah.
and it's working your quadricep muscles, those leg muscles, which are just pumping blood into your heart. So if anybody's out there, if you can walk on an incline, and you don't have to walk fast. I mean, for me to get in that sweet spot, which is about 115 to 120 is my heart rate, it's not hard. 3.5 miles per hour at 3 degrees incline, I will get there. And that's why you just got to keep checking to see if your heart in that right zone. And once you find that sweet spot, you just stay in it.
Yeah.
So I typically tell people that are on the weight loss journey, 3 to 5 hours of fat burning cardio a week. 3 hours, 3 to
spread out however they want it. Should they take a good chunk of that and do like an hour 3 times a week, or
ideally you want it, once you get into that zone, you want to stay there for a little while. You know what I mean? So ideally at least a half hour.
Okay.
If you can do a half hour every day, there is your 3.5 hours right there. But if you can do a little bit more, because it's not strenuous.
But you don't know where you're at until you have the tracker too. So it's so important that you watch that. I mean, you might be feeling like, okay, this is probably, but your body's different than the person maybe telling you where, you know, your fat burning zone is. Mine might be a little different. So it's important to get that baseline, the coaching, the tools.
The tools.
Yeah.
And a way to monitor that is you should be able to break a sweat, but not breathe hard.
Okay.
So that's sort of like when you start breathing hard, that's when you start getting that cardiovascular, the heart and lungs.
Okay.
So ideally, if you're breaking a sweat and you can still have a conversation, that's where you're in that fat burning zone. But at any gym, they have the sensors that you can sort of grab onto to see where you're at.
Yeah.
But if I have something strapped to my wrist, it's going to be a super accurate, a lot more accurate.
Cool.
And it's all based off the same technology, green light technology. So when you go into the hospital, that little thing you put your finger in, the trackers use the same thing. So every heartbeat, your skin elevates and collapses. The same technology. So it's going to be within a couple heartbeats. Yeah, just to see where you're at.
It's awesome. Okay, that's the third.
Yes, so we have your team, your fuel, your motor. And now we're going into your armor. The armor is your skeletal structure. That's where the resistance training comes in. Resistance training is more important after 40 than any other time in your life. So if you're not on some resistance training program, you need to start implementing that.
Why is that after 40?
Well, your body's deteriorating. Gravity has been pushing down in your structure for over 40 years. So your body starts decaying. It starts breaking down. And that's why we got to reverse that process. We got to strengthen those bones. We got to build some muscle so we can withstand gravity. That's really what it is. Gravity's pushing down on you 24/7. And that's where resistance training will sort of come in to build armor.
Really quick. So I'm over 40. I'm about to turn 43. And I love resistance training. Those that are listening that aren't 40, they've got an upper hand, right? If they're starting sooner.
Yes.
How soon is too soon? I've got, teenage. Is there a time where it's like, okay, they've gone through puberty, they're going through it. I've heard that it can stunt their growth a little bit if they start resistance training too soon. If there's fathers or mothers listening, they're like, well, I've got a teenager, I want to push them to get strong and this and that. They're playing sports, but I don't know when the right timing is?
So ideally, they say age of 13, when the growth plates have sort of developed, you can implement. But this is where I would implement body calisthenics. I'm a true believer in mastering your body. Most of the workouts we do together is all body weight resistance. And it comes into time under tension. So if you can't master your body first, you shouldn't be actually jumping into a gym first. You know what I mean? We should learn how to move our bodies and be able to understand that resistance before we even start playing in other places. Interesting. So if you have kids, we need to learn them how to use and move their bodies. So all athletes, man, they need to learn how to move. Laterally, forward, backwards. So start with your children there. Push-ups, body pulls. And that's where the great thing at Mountain Ops, we have resistant bands. Resistant bands are amazing because you can gauge the tension and you can do it anywhere. You can strap it to a fence. You can strap it to something and you just use that internal resistance. And we're thinking of where are you going to start and how to build off of that. There's so many different ways of resistance training. And my goal is to make it safe and effective for you. We can't have injuries. We can't have setbacks. So we have to get the ego out of the equation. Lots of these people I'm dealing with, they used to exercise in high school. Well, it's a little different when you're training at 16 compared to 40. Some of the movements maybe you were taught during PE aren't very safe to do when you're 40. And that's where it comes into some guidance, some structuring.
And maybe not even taught. They just go into a gym and they're looking around. They don't want to throw up a little weight, so they add on what other people are doing. The ego, I love that point because it's just, it's one of the things I haven't liked about the gym scene at times is because you go in there and everyone's kind of sizing each other up or whatnot, and I do the same. So I like to work out in the private of my own home or here at Mountain Ops where I know everyone, but you just drop the ego, and more than likely nobody cares anyways what you're lifting. So be careful.
And be smart about it. I did a project back in Oregon. It's called Making Oregon Healthy, and we did a workout. It was designed. It's called, what was it, Body by Science, I think it was. And all it was is that you do a pushing movement, a pulling movement, a pushing movement, a pulling movement, and then a leg press. And it was for 2 minutes. And you would take that resistance and move it as slow as possible for 2 minutes. And so there's no explosion. There's no gravitating. You're just grinding through that. And we had people that were ages of 18 up to 70 years old. And just implementing that resistance training, we did it 1 time a week. Even the 7-year-olds would double in strength a period of time because they're getting used to the body under tension over a period of time.
That's awesome.
So if you're implementing, trying to figure out your armor, stick to the basics. Push, pull, leg movements. I'm a huge believer in developing your core, hips, and legs because those are what propel your body through life. So I do core, hips, and legs every day. Something, just a little bit, because that's my movers.
That's awesome. In fact, the doctor that I go to, and I do go every year, get the physical, and for a period of time, I was all about chest, thighs, tries.
The show muscles.
The show muscles. And he said, hey, you're healthy. You've got some good muscular structure, but you should focus on the core a little more.
Yes.
So I mean, with your routine, there's been times that I've done your core workout that you have on YouTube. I think I went like a couple months straight doing it every day, and it makes a huge difference on all the movements you have.
Yes.
So you can't forget that.
No, you and that's where you got to build your routine, and that routine needs to be sort of structured around that. And the thing is that you don't have to train all the time, but I would definitely recommend at least once or twice a week of doing some resistance training, covering all the compound movements. Compound movements are multiple muscles that work together for one movement. And that's ideally what we're trying to do, is getting many muscles to work together for one movement.
Awesome.
So just keep it very simple, and it comes down to intensity. The only way you sort of change is making your body adapt. Adaptation. So sometimes with the weight training, you have to get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you have to do it safely.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. So if you haven't exercised in a long time, hire a coach, hire somebody, get a workout partner, get somebody that loves it. Allow them to show you the way, but it needs to be basic movements that get as much blood flow through the extremities as possible. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
Very good.
So we have your team, your fuel, your motor, your armor. The fifth component is your recovery. What do you do to keep your body up and running? That comes back to team, massage therapists, acupuncturists. Those are key people. If you've had injuries, I've had several injuries over my life. That's where therapist comes in. Acupuncturist, massage. When I have those, I invest into those.
Yeah.
Comes back to your nutrition, hydration, supplementation. Those are some things that you can implement into your recovery. Sleep.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into your recovery. Cold plunge.
Yeah.
Foam rolling. Stretching. Mountain Ups, they have some amazing recovery tools. Phoenix, Diffuse. Those are some amazing supplements. Protein, collagen, anything that's going to protect muscle tissue and ligaments and tendons, you should invest your money into. Protein is the most important investment we should be making into our recovery. Because the way I look at it is, especially if you exercise, you are causing damage to the muscles. And if you went to the grocery store, you cannot buy 25 grams of protein for $1.25.
Yeah.
And with protein powder, it's super easy on digestion because it's liquid based.
Yeah.
There's no effort for your body to break it down. It just absorbs to the body.
That's awesome.
So that's where there's supplements, there's nutrition, there's sleep, there's things that you can implement into your recovery team. So recovery is probably the most overlooked area of fitness. People are just walking around.
Where are they lacking most? Do you think it's the sleep? Do you think it's the fuel? Do you think it's the
combination of nutrition? Most people are deficient in protein.
Yeah.
I would say most of my athletes are malnutritioned.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea. And most people, they eat healthy, but they have no idea of how many calories they're consuming to what their output is.
So they're just depleted.
They're just, because
upside down.
I mean, I personally, I exercise 2 to 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
So my output is around 4,500 to 5,000 calories. So if I'm eating 2,000 calories and I'm burning 5, I have a 3,000 calorie deficit. So I'm never going to recover.
Yep.
So you really have to keep that within range. Typically, when I'm on my weight loss journey, I never go over a 5,000 calorie deficit for the week. This is where I've sort of learned from my body is when I start pushing over a 5,000 calorie deficit, I start losing muscle tissue, even if I'm eating 400 grams of protein.
Okay.
It really comes into how many calories are in to how many calories are out.
Okay.
So you got to keep that under control. For typically, 3,500 to 5,000 calories should be your deficit if you're on a weight loss journey for a week.
Okay.
Somewhere in that ballpark. If you start pushing more, you're just going to have that rebound effect and you're causing more damage to your body than you know.
Yeah. Sleep. Is that, I've heard so many different numbers, 7, 8 hours, 6 hours. I hear that, you see the 5 a.m. warriors that get up and they say they only need 3 hours or 4 hours of sleep. I don't subscribe to that because I know my body. If I don't get at least 6, a few days in a row of that, I'm getting sick. I know my body will start to shut down. So I've been able to read my body. 7 is like what my body wakes up to. And I don't know if I can sleep longer than that unless I've just really worn myself down. But yeah, 7. I've tried to sleep in with my wife and my kids, and they can sleep in until 9 or 10 o'clock. I don't know how they do it, but for me, it doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I'll never sleep past 7 hours for whatever reason. But is there kind of I mean, after 8 hours, it maybe depends on the age, but and then I've heard if you go to bed before 10 o'clock, that before midnight sleep is the best sleep. I don't know if there's science behind that or.
Well, there's just so much out there, and this is where you really have to. This is your lifestyle.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And the only time your body repairs is during sleep. That's when it sort of regenerates itself. So each individual is different. I trained with Cam for over 12 years.
Yeah.
That man runs a little different.
Yeah.
So I can't compare you to him. This is your journey, right? This is and you got to listen to your body. Most people aren't even paying attention to the clues.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I wake up at 4:30 every day. So I have to try to be in bed by 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'm trying to hit that 6 to 6 hours, somewhere in that range. Some people would say that's not enough, but I am listening to my body. And if I need to take a nap, I might take a 30-minute shutdown meditation midday, and it really does recharge me.
Awesome.
So this is where you got to find that routine. Just as you pray in the morning, I give that prayer 5 or 6 minutes. Midday, when I'm at noon, I was up at 4:30, so I can give myself a little grace. I can put some meditation and maybe calm my body and put my feet up for a moment to recharge so I can get through my rest of my day. So I would just say it's really up to the individual, but if you're neglecting sleep, you're not going to hit your performance. It's going to be hard for you to lose body fat because your cortisol levels.
Yeah.
And there's going to be things holding you back, but that's why we go back to the markers.
Yeah.
That's why we go back to the starting points, because that's your monitor. If your performance is suffering, lack of sleep, maybe not enough recovery, maybe not enough nutrition. If you go back after 30 days of doing your body composition and you lost some muscle and you didn't lose any fat, what does that tell you? You need to adjust your nutrition a little bit. So it always goes back to these markers, these starting points. So recovery is the most overlooked area. Hydration, nutrition, supplementation, sleep, tools, those are part of your recovery.
Yeah.
But I would say hydration, nutrition, and sleep.
Hydration's huge.
That's the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Because that's what replenishes your body.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, our hydrate product, I mean, 80% of Americans are walking around like zombies, and sometimes they don't know why. Sometimes they are getting enough sleep, but they're not hydrated. They're not, you talked about those macros and water being one of them, and hydrating the right way is incredible. I've seen that adding that to my routine has made a huge difference in making sure I'm hydrated. Not, I drink enough water, but then adding our hydrate product to it, so I'm getting enough of the salts and the potassium and sodium that I need each day. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, salt, and especially for salt is the key. Salt is the key that holds water in the muscle. If you've ever done, like in your marathon, right?
Yeah.
Marathon is asking the body to perform over a long duration of time. I live in the hottest place in the country. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so I have to have that salt in there to keep the water in the muscles so it can function.
Yeah.
So the hydrate is a supplement, but you gotta hydrate and keep the water in the body. So those are hopefully some starting points to bring awareness of where you're at. And then we're just trying to find a balance in these 5 components. If you need a little guidance, that's where Mountain Ups, we have a team here that can sort of guide you along this way. But we're here to sort of give you that crutch or that direction. But you got to have a balance in all those components, and you got to know those starting points.
It's amazing. Yeah, I would say anyone listening, utilize this podcast as part of your team.
Yes.
Utilize what Eric's sharing as part of, the educational process of having a coach. You might not have a one-on-one session with Eric. You might not be able to come to the gym here at headquarters to have that workout or to get that interaction, but you have this to listen to. Revisit it. Make sure you're checking off those boxes of building the right team and the fuel and the motor, and the fourth one was
the armor,
and then recovery. Yes. Thanks for helping me out there. He's on my team.
I got you.
Sometimes you forget the little details. You need someone to keep you on track. So, utilize this. This is a resource, and the things that will be coming out with that Eric will be spearheading will be other portions of your team.
Yes.
You've got an authority figure here that knows his stuff. He's been refining his craft for a long, long time. He's an expert at it, and utilize this.
But I'm still in the same process as everybody else. I'm 51 years old, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm dealing with injuries and things like that. We're all on the same path of how to keep our bodies functioning.
Yeah.
So we're just asking, if you have questions, give us the direction where you want us to go. What kind of information do you need or direction that you can send to us so we can sort of spearhead that and know where we need to go? But hopefully this is sort of giving you a little direction and a little bit of light clicked on. It's like,
yep.
Oh, maybe I should start recording this, journalize this.
Yep.
We have a 90-day program, a booklet that can sort of help journaling through that. Spiritual, social, mental, and physical.
Yeah.
All those components. Find a balance in your life.
Well, that's good. Well, Eric's on the same path as all of us. He may be ahead of many of us, but what I love about him most is that he's rising highest because he's lifting as he goes. And so, Eric, appreciate this. This is awesome. Love you too, brother. And we'll be coming back to you with more. But please enjoy this podcast and enjoy all that you can learn and implement into your life by listening to and applying it to your life. Let's go conquer more.
God bless.